Y'all ready for the open mic session of this get-together? You ready, Herman?
You talk with your hands.
I do talk with my hands, huh? Oh yeah, look at all that. All right, let's do the open mic portion of this get-together. I'll get it started. I'm sure I'll have other memories, other things I'm going to want to say, but I'm going to get it started, and then I hope you guys fight me for the mics. I think we have 4 mics total. If you're sitting there and if you have a story and you don't tell it, I'll hold it against you personally. There's a lot of stories here. Please come up and tell them. Garland, you got some good stories from freezing trailer days? You can think about it. So my dad was the pro at telling me what not to do, but he would do it after he'd already done it. He was not much for textbook teaching me rights and wrongs, but he would do all the things and then tell me, "Dit is zoals die niemals. Zo zoals die never." For those of you from Tigertown, Paris, Tigertown, what is that? What is that? Not 79, right? 79 going from Tigertown to Paris? What's that? And then you make the right-hand turn. You make that one right-hand turn. 79 to 22 what? 2820. No, I'm not worried about that. That intersection where you turn right. So my dad was a pro. He would break all the traffic laws while he was telling me not to do it, while my mom was sitting in the passenger seat knowing it's about to happen, telling him not to do it. And my dad's already chucking him out saying, and then my dad would literally look around the back and say, "No, and so what he would do is, as we're coming upon that intersection, he wouldn't slow down. He'd look to the left and he'd cut it to the left. And we came back from Paris, coming back home, instead of going down and making that proper left-hand turn, he would cut it on the left-hand side going against traffic. It worked every time. Never ever got caught. And did the same thing in Castle, going to freezing trailers. You know that gravel road that got shut down? Garland, you remember? That gravel road got shut. I think that thing got shut down because of my dad. Because he would cut to the left. He would cut to the left there. And, I remember a state trooper sitting there sometimes. I know I got pulled over. I know Patrick got pulled over, but my dad never did. But, again, I'm saying those stories because my dad was fun. While other people knew him as a pastor, a preacher, a deacon, a pillar of the community, whatever you want to call it, to me he was still dad. And he could be serious, but there was a lot of fun. My dad was the best at fire. He taught me how to play with fire and always telling me, "Don't ever do this." And Mom would tell him, but we burned things. We blew up things. We would put things in the garbage can, the 55-gallon drum that should not be in there. WD-40 cans that were half full. He knew they were half full, but he'd put it in there anyway because he had the same addiction to blowing things up or burning things down as I did. He knew it was unsafe. He'd throw it in there, and then after it was already in there, he would tell me I need to go ahead and maybe start running in that direction. And I remember one time there was a headlight from the 4020 John Deere tractor in the barrel as well. And that headlight is made of such thick glass. For those of you who know an old John Deere headlight, it's such a heavy projectile. That thing comes flying out of that barrel and hits the side of the house and breaks the vinyl siding, like a nice big spot. And I ended up having to go find some vinyl siding to match the side of the house and fix that whole entire area. And this is my dad doing it, not me. And I'm telling you that because I just wanted to say I remember him as a fun guy. He could be serious, but there was a lot of fun. One more thing, you remember that minivan, that minivan with the turbo, 4-cylinder turbo? Dat ding kunt spinnen. Huh? I couldn't understand that. Oh, Zuivel Pez, yeah. Every time he'd get on it, it'd be full of kids in the back. So, of course, the weight's in the back, the engine is in the front, and you got all the front-wheel drive power. And he would punch it. And the best part is we already knew when he was going to do it because I could see the look on his face, and Mom could see the look on his face he was going to do it. And Mom would be telling him, "Du bist nicht so hasselwein, ganz a Kuffel vergesst der Geband." But again, he was fun. Yes. You know, if you look on bringatrailer.com, those things sell for big money now. I wish I still had that van. I wish that thing was still somewhere around here. Yeah, those things were fast, and for some reason, we accidentally had one of those. Yeah, but anyway, I'm sure there's plenty more stories. Those are the few that popped up first. There are more mics. Anybody else wants a mic? You can have mine or one of the other ones. Absolutely. If somebody wants to come steal the mic, do that. If not, we'll look at some pictures, but I hope to hear lots of stories. It's not live yet.
No? No. Okay, somebody handed me this story to read.
The speaker is messing with you right here.
Oh. Is it? Okay. This is a story that was handed to me to read here. It's about Peter. The title says, Lost in a Strange Environment. Peter and Elizabeth J. Dueck, with their family of 9, were among the immigrants who came from Manitoba and settled on the Quelland colony in 1948. They built the farm that later was known as Pete B. Lowen's farm in Eichenbach. As was customary in those days, they also did their cooking on a wood stove. "Boys," Father announced one day, "we need firewood. Tomorrow you will have to go to the mountains in the west and bring a load." The next day, as the oldest 3 sons, Albert, Leo, and Clarence, prepared to leave for their adventurous trip, little Peter also caught wind of the excitement and begged to go along. Going to the mountains with a John Deere tractor and trailer sounded so exciting to 6-year-old Peter. Since the boy's uncle Abram was going along as well, and they expected to be back long before dark, Father deemed it safe for Peter to go along too. He admonished the big boys to take good care of their little brother as he saw the crew off. Off they went, all animated by the expectations of the day ahead. During the work, the brothers occasionally glanced at the towering mountain, which was so enticing to these Canadians who were used to nothing but the flat prairie of Manitoba. With 4 sets of strong arms, the load was full sooner than they had envisioned. "Since we are done earlier than expected, why don't we quickly climb the mountain before we go back?" one of the brothers suggested. "Great idea, but what about our small brother? He's too small for that trek. Maybe we could convince him to stay with the tractor and wagon." After some coaxing, the innocent little chap agreed to stay behind. But soon after the brothers and uncle left, a wave of loneliness overwhelmed him, and when he looked in the direction where his brothers had gone, he could still see them in the far distance. In his childish ignorance, he quickly decided to follow them. No sooner thought than done, he ambled off, not realizing the enormity of his undertaking. To his dismay, he soon lost track of his brothers. Deciding he should go back to the tractor, he forlornly started to retrace his steps, but he did not reach the tractor as he had envisioned. Soon he realized that he was lost in strange woods. But to sit still surely would not bring him anywhere, so he continued to walk, albeit having no idea in which direction he should go. Eventually, he came to a small clearing, and to his surprise, he saw a group of Mexican cowboys sitting around a fire cooking their meal. They were just as surprised to suddenly see a small white-skinned boy approaching them as Peter was to find them. Neither having any idea as to who the other was, and neither understanding the other's language, they were all at a loss as what to do. But nevertheless, the cowboys were friendly, and assuming the lost wanderer might be thirsty, they offered him the best they had. The coffee was very strong, but Peter's thirst compelled him to drink nevertheless. After some time, the brothers returned from their mountain hike, and to their shock, their small brother was nowhere to be seen. Spontaneously, they called and started searching frantically. Their alarm mounting with each passing minute, they contemplated what to do. The sun was rapidly sinking low on the horizon. Why not go home and come back tomorrow and continue the search in broad daylight? Uncle Abram suggested, obviously not sharing the anxious worries of the brothers, nor realizing the seriousness of the situation. The brothers unanimously rejected that idea. Hey, why not start the tractor and give it full throttle? He might hear that wherever he is, one of the brothers suddenly suggested. And sure enough, that did it. Peter and also the newfound friends faintly heard the sound, and one of the cowboys helped the frightened lad and led him in the direction of the pudding. How relieved the brothers were when they saw their small brother suddenly emerging out of the semi-darkness, accompanied by a strange Mexican. Needless to say, the mother at home was worried and anxiously paced from window to window, peering into the darkness, until she faintly but clearly distinguished the pudding of the John Deere. Her apprehension quickly receded as the sound came closer and closer, and eventually actually turned into their yard. Momentarily, her scare returned as she heard what happened, or worse yet, what could have happened. But the reality quickly quenched all tensions as she embraced her darling son. The family was so grateful to be all together, safe and sound, under the same roof again. True story.
About that is I had actually not heard that story ever before, day before yesterday.
No, no, that's Susan's birthday party half in Belize. It's in Belize.
40th anniversary.
Yeah, 40th anniversary. 50th anniversary for him.
That was the Costa Rica trip.
It was 50th birthday and 15th anniversary, right?
Yep.
Oh, this is Lester on Grandma's lap. No, with the grandma. Peter's new tractor. He got out bought a brand new tractor.
According to some of our cousins from Canada, I think in this room, they were saying that it was possibly one of the first new John Deere tractors in the country of Belize. Was that correct? One of the first? Was it? Yeah. Sound about right? Again, he wasn't a showman as far as we knew him growing up, but some of the stories that I've heard over the years, I think prior to 35, he might have been a little bit of a showman because he showed up with new tractors and new pickup trucks and new toys and new stuff from Canada on his trips back home. And that's not how I ever knew him. When I was growing up in the house, we were we were supposed to be satisfied with used stuff and definitely not make a show. So I guess he got that all out of his system before he got married.
Een strometje haas.
Their wedding picture.
When we first arrived in Oklahoma.
Where was this house trailer?
It's your platte.
Your Platte house trailer? Okay, but where was this thing sitting?
Right behind right next to us.
I know, but weet dat Maiva, hoe we nu
Ja,
wonen?
ja,
It
right
was up there?
there.
Okay. All right.
That's little Titus with her.
Hey, Mom,
Trying to raise peanuts.
where was this, in Boli?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow.
peanuts. Peanut crop.
Huh, I guess I didn't know that.
No, well, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's Lester getting a change of diaper.
Okay.
Lester, you here?
Lester.
Yeah, Lester gets a change of
That'd be a
diaper.
Lester, yeah.
That's-
He tackled what was needed.
No.
That's also Lester, the baby. Yeah, so proud of him, moving our house.
I sometimes wonder who all got involved in moving that house. Any story to that one?
Yeah, Lawrence. No, ja, aber du wirst weiter, ne? Wirst du...
It's not really detailed. This is where the dang that's from Henry.
Dat we Henry's in huis, which is the back part of our house, en dan wordt wat aangeslaapt en dan wordt het omgevangen, hè? Uh-huh.
Simple. Party like this.
Well, he went down to the river and caught the biggest cotton trees down below there. There's some huge trees, if anybody knows the sand.
No, it's Henry's house.
Yeah, I remember that day very well because half of, or almost all of Tucker Ranch was there at our house, I think, that day. But Dovey had 5 tractors, but I think there was another one. I don't think that was it. 6 tractors? I remember several tractors, yeah. Yeah. And that $1,000, was that enough, or do we still owe you some money? It was enough?
Buy a toilet for a house these days. Oliver, for that cool man. Anybody want a bike back here? That little cart I have. So that's where this happened right here.
Herman,
That cart. You remember that?
you remember that? You remember that? You remember what that is? That's the little shack behind the house that we rented in Tigertown. The house would have been on the right side of this picture, and then in that little. No, it's where Low Trail Corner is now. Remember the house we used to live in? Yeah, get the rampels in his. And then he would build trailers in that thing. And right behind it and all around, that thing was like, 100-year-old lumber, dry lumber. And then there's tall grass behind it. And then one day the cutting torch blast was unfortunately going through the slats and out behind the grass. My dad's building trailers. And all of a sudden, pretty much every employee from PJ Trailers shows up with a fire extinguisher. And my dad's working like, what the heck are these guys doing here? All of a sudden, there's 40 people staring at him with fire extinguishers. He's like, what's going on? And he's like, well, your pastor's on fire behind the barn. And my dad didn't even know it. So, yeah, Peter Thiessen had sent everybody over with fire extinguishers, and in a couple of minutes, they had the whole thing out. But, yeah, I remember that very clearly. And dat weer een krootje, what would you call that? Niet een krootje, that's a better word for that. Siltje. My dad would call it siltje. And he would go to PJ Trailers and load that thing up with all the materials that it takes to build one 20-foot or 16, 18, or 20-foot car hauler with 3,500-pound axles, one brake. And so that would be a kit put together by Arlen Kane, and then we'd drag that thing home, and that would happen at 3:45, and that'd be the last thing you do for the day, because next morning you'd start all over again, and at 3 o'clock is when it would be done, because we would get out of school, at 3 o'clock? Was it 3:30? Or was it 3 that we got out? Because I thought I got home at 3:30, because my first job when I got home. Okay, yeah, okay, that could be. I got home at 3:30, and my first job was to put axles under that trailer. I couldn't do anything. My day didn't start at home until the axles got put on. So we put the axles on that thing, and we'd drop it off the stands and then drag it to PJ trailers with the three-wheeler. And if it was a 20-foot, then it was so tongue heavy that the front end it'd be riding a wheelie the whole way. So my job was to sit on the front tire to try to keep the front down while my dad was standing on the three-wheelers, and we would drag that sucker across the street to PJ trailers, and that's how the day would be done. But I had not seen this picture in years. I didn't. That's awesome. I'm glad you have it.
So Titus, let me tell you something about that cart. I think it was you and Herman. You were pushing me around inside PJ trailers.
Like, I forgot about that.
I would hang over the edge, and y'all would push me. See how fast you can push me in it, right? And I had my hands over the edge of that cart.
Yep.
And
lost control.
Yeah, you lost control and slammed me right into a stack of trailer rims. And I still have a big scar on my big finger because
I almost chopped his finger off.
Yeah, I didn't get my fingers
that
out.
Was you should definitely not had your hands there. That's for sure. Yeah.
How dare you? Yeah. I mean, the thing was built out of 2x3 angle iron, so there was no cushion for anything.
I remember Sarah Thiessen being there, and they beschwimmt ganz.
When I saw this picture, I was just thinking about, now we're all looking at our cell phones. He has something that he's reading.
Yep.
Reading to the children.
Lester trying to skill home, baby. Okay. Yeah. All right.
This was income tax time. That's the note for the picture.
Okay.
So, getting ready to pay his dues.
You're looking at the first computer that was probably in Tucker Ranch. that last picture. Yeah, I think so.
Garland was telling some kind of a story about if a tree falls or something. I don't know if he's got that.
Okay, I think I've been conned into saying a little something here by Titus and Jason. So no, I was telling my family that Peter B. was the tree cuttingest person that I ever seen. I mean, he cut a lot of firewood, so I said there's a saying, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, did it still make a sound? I said, yep, Peter B. still heard it, because he had to head over there and cut that thing up for firewood, you know. And anyway, there you see it.
Yeah, he was addicted to cutting firewood, eh?
Yes.
Sometimes till last. I'm a some state. I come home. I hadn't been home that part of the property in a couple months, and I see an area completely cleared out. I'm like, Dad, what's going on, man? You're ruined. No, det var tänk vad. I mean, he was addicted to cutting firewood. That's right.
So I had just a couple of stories. See if I don't forget myself halfway through, but. You were talking about almost any story about the Guatemala trucking or something ended with John Frias Holmes. I worked with him for 3 years at Friesen Trailers in Castle, and break time, we heard a lot of Guatemala trucking stories. But anyway, he told a story one time that him and this John Friesen guy had been, I guess, older boys or men that weren't married yet, and so they been discussing one day, you know, possibly getting married someday and having a family. And then John Friesen had said, but what would we do if we, had kids and we were left home alone with them and they had a dirty diaper? And he was like, oh, we'd just stick their butts into a wringer-type washing machine, you know, top load whatever, and get them washed off and put some clothes on them. You know, they had some kind of a solution for it. Which of you boys ever got that done?
No, I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
Okay. Anyway, and then what you said about him liking to explode things, I remember quite a few times over at Friesen Trailers, he'd go up to somebody welding on a trailer, and if there was an open piece of pipe somewhere, he'd take the guy's torch and blow just a little bit of acetylene off into that piece of pipe. He'd put a striker to it, and the whole shop jumped. I mean, boy, he'd get a big old crack out of that. I mean,
yeah. Again, that right there shows that he was a fun dude, eh?
Yes. Yep, and I remember, you know, he liked a good story. You started telling him some kind of a story, and his eyes would just start getting bigger and bigger, and he'd start, already pursing his mouth to let loose a big old laugh, and sometimes it would just go. He would like, really? Anyway, and then he'd just laugh, and it was fun telling him a story because you'd get a reaction every time. I mean, that's for sure. So.
Hey, freezing trailers. You remember that him? So not only would he put acetylene in the pipe for it to explode if a spark hit it, but do you remember that real annoying thing that welders do sometimes, putting just a little bit of acetylene in your little striker thing? Like I don't know what he would do. Lester would probably know better because I don't know how to do this. But you take your torch and you have your acetylene flowing, and then you just basically let just the little striker thing fill up with acetylene, and then you light it, and it just pops like gunfire. And he would do it over and over again. The dead air in there and explodes. Yeah. And again, you're looking at the pillar of the community that most people would know as Mr. Serious. We got to know him as that fun guy, to the point to where his bosses at Freezing Trailers told him he could maybe cut back on that just a little bit.
So I have another story. He was. Peter B. was also a forgiving man. I don't know how old I was. One Sunday afternoon, there was some of us boys were down in the pasture down there at the bottom. Y'all had an old barn there, and we somehow got carried away throwing around big rocks in that barn on a Sunday afternoon and knocked loose some of those 50, 60-year-old boards, I imagine. And so we heard him whistling from way on top of the hill over there, quite a few times already, and we still kept on carrying on. So eventually he disappeared, and so we thought all was well, and all of a sudden we hear a pretty terrible voice, when you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing behind us, and it was Mr. George Plett, and he was like, "Simmel jag idé vad de unga ska ha om söndagen stålar på rita." He said, "But if you can tear a barn down on a Sunday, you can also rebuild it on a Sunday." So he made us go back to his shop and get some nails and some hammers, and we had to fix that barn up Sunday. And I'm sure Mr. George Plett, there was visitors here from Mexico, and I'm sure he would have rather been on his recliner, hearing some of Yapatko's stories, but because he was there too. But anyway, so then later on that Sunday evening, Mom and Dad said, you need to go up to Peter B's and apologize for tearing up the barn, even though we fixed it. We fixed it back better than it was. We even had George Plett made us put some nails in and rebuild it better than what we had found it, to kind of repay a good deed there.
Was this the barn that had the little rock wall, like maybe about a 4-foot tall rock wall, and then a barn built on top of it straight down the hill? Or which one are we talking about? I have no idea which barn you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember that. All
Okay.
I know is it was kind of down there on the fence, and I always thought it was George Plett's barn, but I guess it was your
there was
dad's.
another one on the fence line. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that now. Oh, wow, okay.
So anyway, back to, so we were supposed to go over there and apologize to you all before we went to school that morning, Monday morning then. Well, we went up the hill, and I don't know, y'all weren't home. Do you remember where you were? No? Anyway, you weren't home, so.
Did you actually make it to the front door? Did you actually ever make it to the front door? Oh, you
we
did,
went and knocked on
For
the
sure.
door.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, those steps, they weren't nearly long enough because we got there way too quick. We weren't sure what we was gonna find, because the way Peter whistled at us, we knew that he meant stop it. Well, anyway, so they're not home, and as young boys sometimes do, we come home. Then Mom and Dad just said, "Well, did you go to Peter B's?" "Yep, we were there." So that's where that was left at till I worked with your dad over at Freezing Trailers. So one day at break time, I guess it was confession time. And so anyway, I told him that story, and man, he got such a kick out of it that I felt he had totally forgiven me, And so I'm glad for that. I don't think he held that against me any longer. But I don't really remember a whole lot more stories. I was hoping maybe Jim and Dennis would have a few yet or something that they could rehash, but it was a good time anyway working with them.
That's awesome. Back to the pictures, Lester. You went on this trip with Dad, right?
Yeah, I did. That one went all the way to Nova Scotia, Canada. I think it was Central Tire is what the customer's name was, but yeah, that was
Absolutely
that was quite
nothing
an
legal
adventure.
about that load, right?
No.
But
I found out they were on this trip, I think after they were about 2/3 of the way over there, and I was asking my dad, what truck are you using? What are you doing? Who has a CDL? What DOT numbers? MC? No, oh, none of that. Okay, absolutely none of that. Okay, so been pulled over by DOT yet? Nope. Made it, what, 2,000, 2,500 mile trip and never pulled over once?
yeah, I'm wondering how we got across the border with that. I don't think we had any paperwork.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. Maybe we did.
Yeah, I don't know how that
forget,
ever
but-
worked out.
Yeah. Resting. Looks like he's resting. Very tired.
Reckon he's thinking or is he zoned out? This was a Christmas, and was it you, Titus, that gave him that, or last year? All kinds of things, puzzles to take apart. Megan got busy doing that.
He always was a very loving grandpa. He loved reading stories to his grandchildren. And
Swinging with them.
yeah, he always loved to push them on the swings. He didn't do that a whole lot the last year or so, but before his major heart attack, he spent so much time with them. So
How about that gas cap? Yeah, it's a wick, isn't it? Huh? My dad bought lots of gas caps for that truck. And they just simply wouldn't, you'd lose them, and so he would always resort to a rag.
This is a fairly recent picture. That's Ezra, the youngest. It's a picture of this year. He had touched when he got him to sleep, but I guess they both fell asleep here.
Here he's watching just maybe a week ago. He sat there and watched Cameron doing the lawn. And he was wishing he could still do it. You see in the background, Cameron is driving the lawnmower, and he was sitting and watching him and just wishing he could still do it.
If Peter enjoyed anything, it was being outside, clearing out some trees, cutting down the weeds. If nothing else, you'd find him in a pasture with his zero turn, mowing down those, I don't know what you call that, that weed that's just...
Yeah, the milkweed, he used the zero turn as a brush hog, didn't he?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, the zero
Yeah, he
turn.
never was one
48-inch stack.
He never was one for using the equipment as it was intended.
Oh, but he has his oxygen. Notice his oxygen line to his. Yeah, he was so down already.
I remember he mentioned that he couldn't do it, and he would enjoy it, but he just couldn't.
Go one picture back. When would that have been?
It's in Houston when we went to visit Titus and Megan in Houston.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Houston Zoo, okay. All right. I haven't seen that picture before. Zoom in.
Actually, it's in Belize. I think this is in Belize somewhere.
I remember
Oh, okay. In Paris, when Dorcas was just maybe 3 months old or so.
When we visited you.
No, it was a Pepsi. Dad was a big fan of Pepsi.
He brought in a big radish or a beet or something from the garden. Probably, I don't know. This is how we saw him many times last month or so. Was the only thing he found energy enough to do something. He would get up his Bible and sit there and read and fell asleep and read again for a while. And yeah, the Bible was the only thing he took time for when he was so tired.
About not last Sunday, I think the Sunday before, I sat down with him, and we were discussing things, and he was having a little hard time talking about anything recent, but I had turned it into a spiritual, because he was always good at his Bible. We talked about, and we got to talking about, people just being good people, or Jesus explaining to Nicodemus that he needed to be born again, and that not everybody understands the difference. And I really felt like he did understand the difference of being a good person or being born again. And I really appreciated that moment, to just have that discussion with him here in the last couple days. So.
Say a little bit. Okay, yes, I'm Peter's brother, living in Belize. But anyway, I called him once in a while, and it was always interesting. He was actually, preferring to talk about Bible or something that he read, and it was always enjoyable. And last week, I wanted to speak to him again, so I called Marlene's phone number and then asked what. But then right away, I heard that he had a big problem. He was sick. So I found out that, he had a tough time even surviving. So then I just decided, okay, we'll talk to him in another day. But then in the morning, I heard already that he had passed away. So we had a quick decision to make to come here. And so I kind of missed him. But anyway, we are very happy that we came here. That was worth the trip. And so.
Yeah, and as mentioned a lot of times before already, but he absolutely loved making sure that the golf cart was charged every single time he would realize that I was coming over. He would make sure the golf cart was plugged in and charged up, 100% charged up, so he could take his grandkids for a ride. That was, his absolute favorite thing to do. And thank you to Uncle Alvin for lending the golf cart to my parents. It's brought lots of memories already.
So Uncle John, he would talk about you a lot in the last, I'd say probably year and a half or so. I mean, before that too, but in his short memory, the one thing he'd always remember that John's the only brother I got left. And in his mind, I think he felt like he was going to outlive everybody, because he was talking about, all his other brothers who had gone on before, and then he would always steer the conversation. He thought it was so funny that everybody's memories going, but he would tell me the same story 5 times in an afternoon. but he'd always tell me how all his brothers had memory loss problems, and he didn't think he had those problems, and he just was wondering about John, how John was doing, if John had any of those kind of problems. But he would literally tell me the same thing 5 times in an afternoon, and I'd let him tell it again like it was the first time. But yeah, he was very, very fond of you. He talked about you a lot.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. But yeah, I like to call him sometimes, and he would, when I spoke to him over the phone, he always seemed to be normal. So they always talked about, he's whatever, losing his mind or whatever. And when I called him, he would always seem to be clear in his mind. I don't know what they talked about. But anyway, so it was good. Even last time we were here, I thought he was pretty well off. He went for a trip. He was driving their car, and we went along. So, but I noticed already that Marlene was not so relaxed. But for me, I thought, it was pretty good. So enjoyed going along.
You didn't hit the ditch, didn't run any stop signs or nothing, right?
A few times that he did the steering wheel a little.
Sure.
But it was, Marlene, she was not very happy with that. She thought maybe he'll go into the ditch. But no, I didn't have any fear. So we just enjoyed that day being with them. I enjoyed being with him.
That's awesome.
I was wondering if this was maybe one of the occasions where he was teaching somebody else to use an axe. Some of the community tree cutting, I don't know. This I believe was in the rehab after his surgery a year and a half ago. This as well.
Walking out of the hospital or the rehab? Rehab.
No, this is in the hospital. Yeah, I went on multiple walks with him down the hallway, and that nurse would always be going on walks with him. Yeah, he liked that a lot.
Group of siblings in Belize. His siblings in Belize.
What year?
Oh, that I don't know. Very recently, maybe last time we were there, probably.
No. Take a look at Dad. That's all the color in his hair. That's not very recent.
Oh, no. That'd be a couple of years ago.
That's a lot of Cokes and 7-Ups.
Everybody had a 7-Up, I guess, or a Coke or whatever. At the Valentine's party, yeah. He got out a brand new John Deere, brand new, and the company actually took this picture, the John Deere company.
I did not know that. As in the dealership?
Yeah.
Where he bought it?
At a dealership in Belize, yeah.
Huh. All right. Lester, when and where was that?
That was probably 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And I finally coaxed him. He did not want to go flying. That was definitely not his style. And finally coaxed him up in there. And I told him I wanted to show him the ranch from the air because it was so beautiful, because I had seen it so many times and really enjoyed looking at it from the air. And so finally convinced him to get in the back. And he wanted to be in the back for whatever reason. He did not want to get anywhere close to all those buttons. And so, yeah, he sat in the back quietly. And I looked back every once in a while, and he was pretty much had his head looking out the window the whole time. So he didn't say a whole lot, but I'm sure he enjoyed it.
Who was in the airplane with you?
I think it was Jason, I think.
Okay.
I think this was the second last load of cattle that we hauled. I was in one truck with a trailer, and he was in this rig. For some reason, I don't know exactly what, but I had him pull over, stop there, and maybe we check the tires or something. And I was like, you know what? I know he loves his farming. He loves hauling cattle to the sale barn, and I'm going to take a picture. And I took a couple pictures, and I always love looking at them. Just over the time, when I go through my pictures, those have always been some good memories. I was able to help him get his cows to the sale barn, and we'd definitely always eat there. That was one thing that he always wanted, make sure that we would eat before we go home, every trip.
Real quickly for my Tigertown, Paris, Texas friends. So 92 was when we moved to Tigertown. When I say moved, as in we had a place there, and we kept our farm up over here. So Dad and I would travel back and forth a lot. Usually at least once a week we would jump in the Volkswagen Rabbit and come back to Oklahoma just to check on the cows. And just for a quick turn and burn overnight trip. And after a while, Peter Thiessen said, "Man, this is too much. You can't be going back and forth twice a week to go check on your cows. Let's just haul all your cows over here to Tigertown. I'll help you find a lease, and we'll put all your cows on some properties over here." And at this time, Peter Thiessen had just bought several brand new red and black Dodge one-ton trucks. This is maybe, this would have been before they changed the shape in 94. So yeah, it would have been some new, maybe like a 93 model Dodge one-tons. And he was so proud of how much power these things had. And we borrowed two 40 or 44-foot cattle trailers from some guys close to Paris, and we loaded all the cows up on two trailers. My dad's driving that yellow and brown Ford, 74 Ford with a 390. Peter Thiessen's driving the brand new Dodge one-ton dually, and it's probably the first time he'd really pulled a load with one of those, and he was so proud of how much power they had. Going up the hills in Indian Nation Turnpike, my dad held the pedal all the way to the metal, and he was passing Peter Thiessen with that truck going up the hill loaded full of cows. I was riding with Peter Thiessen at that time because I wanted to ride in the new truck. And I look over at my dad, and he is literally holding on to the steering wheel with both hands, laughing as hard as he possibly could because he was passing Peter Thiessen, and Peter Thiessen was perplexed. Fantastic memory.
This was where he always enjoyed having a garden. It seemed like he was the one that knew how to till it, but also get tired and just sit down and rest.
No, 40th anniversary.
We had to laugh a little bit back then. He got fed, and it was kind of a strange idea to him, it seemed like to me, but it was funny.
In Belize. His siblings in Belize.
I believe we figured out this would have been the day of his mom's passing away, and he was missing, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yes. Yeah, this is a
What year would that have been, Mom?
I don't know.
That's what I was saying. How old is that picture?
Okay, probably so.
Was that Cameron? Lester? No, one picture back. The kid. No. Cameron and Dorcas?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the last time we were in Shiner.
Oh, yeah, that was at my house about a year ago, year and a half ago. Mm-hmm.
It's in Payden Park. It's in Belize at his sister Betty's place. Yeah, feeding a grandchild, that was his hobby.
That seemed to be one of the things he just lived for, trying to get them little ones fed. They're not supposed to go hungry. I thought it was quite interesting. You notice which way it goes here? Let's go here.
Again, he had the patience for kids. Not just patience, the real love for kids.
Okay. Sitting in Belize under a shade tree and trying to do his sudoku. Well,
That's me.
yeah.
This picture is also more recent, but he just loved holding Ezra. We'd come over, that'd be what he wanted to do.
It's in the care center up Hawaii's. Yeah, this is when John came for a visit. It was
Was
very
that-
special to him to have John's there.
Was that about a year ago?
Yeah, but no, not yet.
It's November.
Oh, November. November,
last
okay.
year we stopped here. Yeah, no, it was, we enjoyed it very much, yeah. It was good to be here.
Oh, that's him with his hunting sons. Were hunting and they came in with, I don't know if they shot a deer or not. Yeah.
Oh, hey, there's the minivan. Huh? No, no, no. This is in Oklahoma. That's our 1989 Dodge minivan. Proudly bought from James Hodge Dodge.
Lechio.
You're probably all about tired and ready to leave. Have heard a lot of his last 40 years, I think, so 40 some, and that's fine. I almost grew up with him, not his brother, but almost, and well, more with Uncle Donnie and Uncle John. About Uncle Peter, that's like we heard already, he was a very ambitious and busy and serving man right from young. Those years back, the 1 year took longer than it seems like as it's nowadays. But he was in a lot of things. I was thinking about it. I won't remember them all now. Some was mentioned already, like his trucking, but he had also a thrash machine for corn thrash machine, and he did not avoid getting dirty at all, never, I think. Well, I don't know the last years, but he liked to work, and he didn't mind working hard. And he was an old single boy when it seemed to me at that time. Now it wouldn't be that way anymore, but there was he was trucking, he was the threshing machine, and he was a farmer. He was planting, growing crops, and he was going to serve on, like it was mentioned already. They mentioned, where did they mention? Guatemala or somewhere earthquake? But I'm pretty sure he was quite long-term in Honduras after a hurricane, serving as a handy old bachelor, since he hadn't a family like all the others, or most of the others. So he was very, very useful. And there's lots of other things that he was doing. I don't know how could he do so many things, be involved in so much. And but one time, little detail, Titus was saying already that his dad did get angry once in a while, I think. But he was very interesting, yeah. One time they were working on a field together with Uncle Leo. Uncle Peter and Uncle Leo had together a field in Belize and Barton Ramy, and then they were getting ready to plant, I don't know if beans or corn, but Uncle Leo, of course, had the seeder, the planter machine, the tractor with the planter, but then Uncle Peter was cultivating to prepare the ground. And at dinner time, Uncle Leo, very softly, well, there was my dad, Albert, and Clarence, and Peter. They were with all a quite strong character. They would easily can talk very bro and correct their sons. Uncle Leo didn't do that. Are they Leo's boys here yet? Oh, they're gone. Okay, well, sorry, but...
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them back here.
Oh, they are there. Okay, then they want to tell their stories yet. So I won't say everything. But the thing is, Uncle Leo was a lot softer, and in Spanish we say amable. But the thing is, Uncle Leo at the dinner time there on the field with several different people working there, he reminded Uncle Peter, you are not careful enough. You're driving too fast. He had a wide cultivator, and if he would hit, and there was trees on the field, and if he would hit roots, this cultivator was a system that easily would break the coil, I don't know, stang there. The thing is, then Uncle Peter said, you don't know how ready I am on the paddles to brake, to stop. There won't happen anything. I mean, he almost scolded, he scolded Uncle Leo more for trying to warn him than Uncle Leo warned him. But that's the way they brothers were. John has stories too he wants to tell yet, I think. But another thing, slipped my mind now. I'm getting older too. There was another detail I wanted to share, but they were married 2 or 3 months later than we, so we were the same about the same age, and he was one of the few people in the world that we talked about intimate marriage life. It was very, very special and interesting to me. He gave me consejos and hints, which I really appreciated. So I just, when we heard that he was getting weaker and weaker, we decided if it's possible, we want to be here. I have been quite a few funerals, of course, at home, but going to other country, I think after a person passes away, it's 2 times in my life. And one was Uncle Daniel, and now this is Uncle Peter. that doesn't say that they're the most special persons, but that's how it is. And I just want to be, I'd like Spanish or ditch, but traiste de familia, and that we lost a son, a 22-year-old son, was a hard experience. That's, I'm sure it's not like spouses, and but there is healing. At first, it's not so hard. Usually, it can be different for anybody, but usually at first it's not so hard because relieved that we had our son was sick too for quite a while, and then relieved. But then later on it can get worse yet, loneliness, emptiness. But then there is healing. God has created us in a way, and his plan is that we will depend on him and get the healing eventually. Not today, but there's hopes.
Okay, my name is John Dueck, so I would be a nephew to Uncle Peter, and my dad was Leo and Uncle Peter. They were doing most of their things when I was younger. They were doing it together. So farming, buying John Deere tractors was a big deal. Buying some combines and so forth. So I got to know Uncle Peter very well. And I was telling Auntie Marlene earlier, when we nephews, our older nephews, were really proud of Uncle Peter is when he brought that beautiful girl, his girlfriend, to Belize to show off to his nephews. And that was Auntie Marlene. And I told her today I told Auntie Marlene today she looks just as pretty today. So I told her that today, actually. But we were probably just as proud for her because her old uncle finally had found somebody, and a real good one. I did write just a couple of notes down so I wouldn't miss something, just a few little things here. Whenever I came and visited with Uncle Peter, he made me feel like I was his favorite nephew. To the rest of Uncle Peter's nephews that are here today, just letting you know, I think it actually really was the case. He did not outright tell me, but I could just feel it. Anyway, I'm okay with that. Like I said earlier, my dad and Uncle Peter farmed together back in Belize when I was just a young boy. They were all in on the John Deere brand. It's all about the green. Both had new 1120s, John Deere tractors, and were very proud of it. If you look at most of the nephews and uncles, Uncle Peter's side, they drive John Deere. Big impact on the family. I tell you a little story, and I know some of you have touched on it. As much as we loved Uncle Peter, and we still do, he did have a side where he would lose his cool once in a while. Which was okay because we nephews kind of enjoyed that a little bit. So we had my dad and Uncle Peter had bought a Massey Harris combine, which is not a Massey Ferguson, but it's a Massey Harris. And they painted it, make a beautiful combine, and then we would take it to Albert Dueck's field to thresh combine. He would drive the combine, and we nephews would fork the black beans. The red kidney beans or black beans? Okay, black beans into the header in the front. And he was driving the combine, and that blower in the back would just plug up all the time. And finally he had it. And I was going to say he mildly lost his cool, but actually wasn't just mildly. He yelled from the combine and said, "Boys, if this blower was 1,000 feet in diameter, it would plug every time," and then he would go 100 times with that belt drive. Tried to loosen it. But we kind of enjoyed it because we saw both sides of it. He was a real fun man to be around with, so I agree with that. Was an amazing, what you call him, an amazing young man and at that time, and loved him all the way to the end. We'll miss him a lot.
John, wasn't there something that you possibly knew that if you would do certain things, it might plug up a little easier and give you a break?
Well, I wasn't going to tell that part of the story.
Well, your brother confessed to it.
Yeah, that might have been one of the other nephews, but if we forked all the beans in at the same time, it was a problem.
Okay, I was just remembering, well, I'm Ruben Dueck, one of the nephews that I guess the first years grew up with Uncle Peter too. Some of you said don't know him as a showman, show off, but I think he always was. He really was a showed off a lot. One of the last times, one of our visits here, I don't know if it when he was 70 years old. Well, he always had the idea of bragging about his physical condition better than all the rest of his brothers and getting older. I think he was 70 years old when one of my visits, or 70 some, so he started jumping just to show off that he's still a very good condition. So sometimes if we are with our family, then we show off, right?
Yeah, I think it was in his blood to be a show off. But I think as a dad, I think he tried to suppress that as much as he possibly could. So I didn't see as much of that. I heard a lot of stories. He might have been a lot more fun before I was born than maybe after I was born. But I think he was trying so hard to be a dad. And I even remember one time, and I don't remember which story it was, I had heard a rumor of a story, and I was asking my dad about if he could give me the details on it, and he flat out refused. He's like, no, that wasn't a story he was going to tell his sons. That was not. And it had something to do with the trucking days and John Fries Holland and some of those, some stuff there. Some of that stuff just wasn't for me to know. Like he was now in the dad era, and he was going to be a good example, and some stories just simply didn't need to be told.
Okay, I have something to share. I'm Lena. So John just spoke. He's my big brother. I'm very pleased to be here with you. And 2 years ago, I don't know, do you remember at the Countryside Park in Belize? That was such a pleasant surprise, very pleasant. I was at the park just hanging out with a friend, and this big bus pulled in. And Peter and Marlene stepped out of that big bus. I had no idea they were in Belize. So I ran over there and quickly had somebody take pictures of us. So that was the last time I saw him. And so my brother sent something that he wants me to read to you. Let me just see if I can find it here. This is from the youngest brother, Lyle. Dear Aunt Marlene and children, I was only 5 years old when we moved away from Belize to Costa Rica, so I really don't have any memories of him in my childhood. But after one of my brothers told me that he spent a lot of time at our house working at different projects with Dad, I realized I may have had more interactions with him than I thought. I am not sure which of the boys it was. Could have been me, I guess. But I always remember one story I have heard numerous times. Uncle Peter had led one of us boys from the shed to the house and reported that this young havstik de baksefal young. Interpreted, this boy has pooped his pants. I mean, that isn't quite the right translation, but I guess as a single man, he probably had no desire to take care of that situation by cleaning it up himself. My memories of him started when we moved from Costa Rica to Canada and stopped at their house on the long journey up north. It was the fall of 1984, I believe, and the weather was cool. The coyotes could be heard at night. Then many years later, they came to join us at one of our annual family camps in Austin, Manitoba. I remember that too. They parked their Dodge Caravan under a tree, and I think they slept in it, or maybe a tent next to it for the nights. That tree was a very sturdy-looking ash tree, which is a hardwood, and stood almost perfectly straight. Well, not long after that camp, I think on the very next visit to the property, that same tree had fallen right in the direction of their van and tent. Let me just scroll up a little bit here. Being only a few yards away, it would have crushed the van. I believe it was determined that it had been hit by lightning. Over the years, I would stop whenever possible to see Uncle Peter and Aunt Marlene on our travels through the area. It was always a special time staying with them. I loved the simplicity of their living and the peace and quiet. I also remember visiting them in Paris, Texas, when he was building trailers for PJ, I think. This would have been around 1994 on a trip down to Belize with Peter and Irene Thiessen. He would get up real early, and by early afternoon, he had one trailer frame welded, and he had made his $100. That seemed like a good pay in those days, and he was very thankful for his job. He mentioned that the weather was so much better, just that little distance south from Boli. I also remember spending the time to answer all of a young, curious boy named Loyal Titus questions, which were many. My last visit was November of 2023. He came to meet me with his Mazda SUV when I wasn't sure which way to take. He then gave me a good tour of the farm and his shed with all his toys, including the Ford pickup, a few ATVs, and a John Deere tractor. I also was inspired by his love for the Word of God and his interest in fellowshipping spiritual things. At one point, he got up on a chair to change a light bulb and got scolded for doing it because he was in danger of falling. I was just glad he didn't fall because it looked very unstable. I was very sure I would come down to the funeral if he ever passed away, and in fact, had planned to visit him at the end of May this year. Well, due to circumstances, I simply could not make it down after all, which I am very sad about. Even though he is now gone, I hope to still be able to stop in to visit Aunt Marlene whenever we travel through. I always had a special love for Uncle Peter and felt the same in return. I enjoyed the WhatsApp messaging we used to do and felt honored to me, mentioned by name as one of his younger nephews even in later years. He will be greatly missed. And here's a verse from 2 Corinthians 13. Be comforted, be at peace, and the God of love and peace be with you. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. From your nephew and cousin, Lyle. You're welcome.
Hey, Titus, I thought you were shy. Du said du Stefan, din pappa har uppgett med show off about his things. Vet du vad jag har haft uppgivet? Also, die mal hol ich hem van Hawaii, is Justina, die had die mama gefound. Die zei, dat is een baby for sale. Ik leef hem zand. En Peter Marlin komen opgejaagd met haar schmokken. Wat van de koor weer dat? Een Grand Marquis?
The Galaxy.
Een Galaxy koor. En een dag stoor ik op en dan is de koor verder daar bij ons. En er staat gewoon scheef en dan is een 2 tires flat. En in Mexico wonen we dan, bij Hawaii is, daar dicht bij we Titus for sale weer. Dat is 1 kilometer af. The Titus were to be handed over to somebody else. So Marlene, she wanted a baby, so there. And then when I got up, the car was sitting in front of the door and 1 or 2 tires flat. The gas tank was punctured. The gas was all shelled out. And I don't know if the oil pan was ripped in pieces too, because I had to cross the mountains to come to get poor Titus because he was for sale and he needed a ride home. So I guess that's where Peter stopped to show off things. Okay. What is it?
Niemand vragen wat niet je had sinds dan, hè?
Yeah. I don't know. But anyways, then when I ended up taking that car to the tire shop, I took tires off and fixed the tires, put one or two new tires on, took the gas tank off of the car, took it to my shop and welded it with a acetylene welder. Who has ever welded a gas tank with a acetylene welder? How dangerous can that be? But I did it. And I survived and nothing banged up. I mean, I know Peter liked bangs, anything blowing up, but I couldn't make that tank go blow up because I had my pickup truck backed up to the tank and put the muffler, the exhaust pipe with a piece of pipe into the gas tank, laying on the ground, and then I welded it with fire, nothing happened, I was...
What happened to the gas tank?
Well, it hit a rock. It hit on the rock.
The gas tank and the oil pan?
Well, I'm not sure if the oil pan was too, but there were several things leaking there in that car.
Just because they crossed the river?
No, the mountains there was big rocks. We hit the big rocks and the tires and the gas tank. Maybe not the oil pan. I'm not too sure. I have welded oil pans too, but anyways, then when everything was fixed, well, they picked up their little roll of blankets, and Titus was in there, and then we took him to the Santa Clara Ranch to get him registered. So Marlene had a newborn baby, and it's very funny that they registered as you was born to her. You probably didn't know that you weren't. Well, I mean, we didn't know better. That was a good thing. We didn't know any better, right? Yeah. That we just picked it up and went like, and then, I remember when they wanted to register, and then is that the mom? And then she said, yes, this is the mom. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is my baby. And then the secretary kind of looked at Marlene. Can that be a 2-day-old baby and you're standing up straight? But she registered him anyways, like he was born to Marlene. This lady goes, but actually, well, we didn't know any better, but was good for him. And when they got to the border, they registered him as American. Nobody has had papers gotten easier than Titus has. He's the hero. He's the hero because we didn't know any better. But before they left, and it was a rainy season. It was in August, I guess. Was it in August?
Yeah.
It was a rainy season, and we felt so sorry for Marlene and Peter with a little bitty baby. They didn't take much time to heal out after having a baby. They took off. They wanted to go home. And then, but since it was so muddy in the boy there through the mountains, that I would take my pickup truck and follow them out there to, if they would get stuck in the mud, I could help them out until to get to the highway. And Titus has reminded me that I was the one that got stuck in the pickup. They had to help me out of the mud there. So it was a miserable road getting back out there. But when he got back to the States, then a little while later, he sent me a tool to adjust the distributor. The distributor was way out too. The car was not running right. And I had to change the distributor timing and put new plugs and points and everything back in there, and then he was ready to go. I guess that's where he ended up his show off, because somebody helped him out. No, I'm just saying. But then he sent a gift to me, and I still have that gift in my toolbox. It's a crooked wrench like this, not like this. What is that tool for, Henry? You know what that tool is for? 9/16. It's down like this. Distributor's roster, yeah. So he remembered that I fixed the distributor, so he gave me as a gift a distributor wrench. So that's all I got, but I figured I would give him a little hand.
Thanks, Alvin. So, on the note of that story, I'm just going to add a little bit to it. And Mom, you can correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but so wasn't Dad working at Stewart Wholesale in Earlsboro at that time? Where was he working at that time?
Well, Payton.
Payton. Yeah. Okay, I thought it was Stewart. Okay, so again, I don't have all the details, but wasn't there some problems with his employment when he came back because it took too long?
Came back,
He lost
And-
his job
Yeah, he lost his job.
because it took too long to come back. He was supposed to be back on a certain day and he didn't show up
Yeah, we
because
were
of the
gone
car
at least
problems.
a week. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He
Anyway,
lost his job.
yeah. So again, back to the several other times I've mentioned he had patience and he loved kids. And I was adopted, and there were many foster kids before me. There were lots of foster kids after me. I always knew I was adopted from as young as I can remember. And I know there's a handful of other adopted kids in this room, and there's something special about that.
Yeah, yes.
All things work together for good to them that love God. And that's what I would say about Peter. He, even though he lost his job at Stewart or where he's working, he started working at Castle Machine, where I was a machinist in the corner, one corner of that machine shop in Castle, Oklahoma. And I was just a young lad. My arms were thin, and I wasn't very strong. So whenever I needed to lift a heavy piece of steel, I would ask somebody to help me lift, and some of those are way too heavy for one person to lift. And then one day I remember when I was done machining the main shaft for a Drawworks, those sand drums, a very heavy shaft, probably 5.5 or 6 inches in diameter and 7, 8 feet long. Much too heavy for one man to carry, so I was trying to round up a few strong men or a winch truck to come lift out the shaft out of the lathe. After I was done, I had to wait a while to get the winch truck to come back in there to lift the shaft out of the lathe. And Pete he knew I had asked him to help, and then we were trying to find other strong men, and the winch truck was busy outside. So I remember him coming and putting his arms under the big shaft, and he said, let's let this, can you open the jaw? We'll get this out of here. And I said, well, just wait a minute. I thought he didn't know what he was talking about. This shaft is, I don't know, a couple 100 pounds. And I don't know, I wish I would have weighed that shaft, but I think somebody else here might know how much shaft weighs for a Drawworks, for those oil rigs. And Pete, he came around the lathe and he put his arms underneath the shaft and he said, open that chuck. And I was hesitant. I wondered what would happen to his arms if I would open the chuck. If this heavy shaft would come down, he might get his arms squished. But I could tell he was bracing himself, and he was ready for it. So I opened the chuck, and he carried that shaft across that floor. I couldn't believe my eyes. I wish I would have had a picture. It was a very heavy shaft. And he was a strong man. And many years later in the hospital in Oklahoma City, the doctors said, we are amazed at your brother-in-law. He is so strong, and he survives even if only part of his heart is working. He's got some determination. Most people at his age with that condition would be in the coffin. He said, it's amazing, your brother-in-law is strong. And I believe he had a strong faith as well. I'm sure it's more important to have a strong faith than a strong muscle, but he was a strong man. And so I was amazed that he didn't want me to wait much longer. He needed to get that shaft out of there. So I appreciate him as a brother-in-law. First thing I remember about him was when he came on the yard to see Marlene. A nice new truck. Yellow, I call it yellow, but maybe a light green truck. It came cautiously onto the yard, even though my dad already told him, don't be too shy. If you've been thinking about Marlene, why don't you come see? Why don't you come see her? You're welcome to come. So he came, but he was very respectful, I believe. He parked a little distance from the house, and I remember it was a new truck, and he came in to visit with Marlene, and Yeah, everything about the truck was good, even the air freshener, everything was, we just thought it was a really nice boy that came to see Marlene. Yeah, so that's about some of my recollection that I have, and I appreciate Pete. Every time we come to Oklahoma, we'd never miss walking up there to their place, and they're always open for us, and I enjoy sitting down in their living room visiting, and we appreciate them both, and we want to keep on supporting them in our prayers and in our thoughts.
Yeah, I want to say something for your family, Marlene and John, and the boys and the girls, Dorcas and whoever else. My tribute. I remember back in the days, Peter and Marlene, they first had to have their wedding before we actually would move to the States. That's where it started, where I was going to do my tribute, just for your information, a little bit of a history, and also for blessings. It is a very unique story you have from Peter. He was more than a handyman, everywhere around. When they finally came, after we arrived here in the 77, they came from Belize. They had, I guess Peter and Marlene, they decided they was going to live in Belize for just a little bit. And as they lived here, we had a land of, 1,500 acres here. And there's some land on the other side of this sand creek here. And we needed to build a little small entrance, a road, to get to the other side of the creek where Ed Friesen used to live, and so on. Anyway, so well, what's the solution here? The place that we worked for an oil field people, and they had dozers and whatnot all. So we was able to rent a dozer from Gordon Brothers, we call them. That was the company's, that was brothers, and they would rent us a big dozer for a day or so. Yeah, okay. Pete was the one that was going to get on that thing, and that bank was every bit of that height right there into the Sand Creek down here below, and he would start pushing on it, and as soon as he could and not later, he would get in there and get across to the other. The dozer would be just, we was amazed what he was able to do. And like I said, he was a handyman all around, and I am sure that there's a lot more to tell, but my tribute, best to you all, family, and I really had appreciated my brother-in-law, Pete. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah, so the one thing that I don't have the exact details, Uncle John probably has more of the details, hopefully, but I believe Dad was one of the first guys to have a dozer company. Wasn't it Dad and Mr. Banman, Isaac Banman? John? Wasn't it my dad and Isaac Banman? Yeah, with the Caterpillars, they were clearing land in Belize. And that's kind of what started the construction company that my cousins still have to this day. And I mean, not directly, but I mean, basically my dad and Isaac Banman, that's kind of one of their gigs they had going on. It was dozers and clearing land.
They did a lot of cleaning, but we're not their own tractors, Caterpillar tractors.
Okay, yeah, according to Tim and Jacob, I thought they had said that the first two Caterpillars that the Banmans.
That was the Spanish Lookout community.
Ah, I see.
Them.
Okay.
But they were just, the operators.
Operators, I see.
Yeah. That's about all I know.
Mom, hast nog wat te zeggen wens die schicht about what happened when you guys went from the wedding in Mexico to Belize? Dan werd je dan met de ferry komen, middernacht, en dat China weer om de ferry even am river cranken?
Okay, well, that was not actually when we first came to Belize, but a little bit later when we came back home from Guatemala or something.
I see.
It was late night already, and then we came to the river, and the ferryman had decided it was nighttime. He would not get up and crank us across the river. And all of a sudden, I noticed Peter was getting ready to just jump in the river and swim across the river to the other side, and it scared me just terrible much. I just had never heard of any such thing as swam across the river in the late night. But that's what he did. I just thought, now he's gone. He hadn't told me that he actually would just jump in and get the ferry from the other side.
I'm sure if he would have told you, you would have not let him do it, so it was probably a better choice.
No, I wouldn't. Anyway, and it took just a little while, and then I heard he was starting to crank the ferry. Well, he must still be alive. No alligator swallowed him, or... Yeah, that was very challenging that year in Belize, because it was very, very different from what I was used to. Yeah, so it all turned out all right. Yeah. So...
Talking about his strength, I have been thinking about the word meekness. What does it mean to be meek? Isn't that knowing how to use our strengths? And I saw a change in him after his hospital stay a year and a half ago. And until there, I knew he was a strong man, and spiritually. But after that, I saw it yet even more. When I think about him, the word meekness, he knew what his strength was for. He was strong, but knew, somehow learned to control it. And I admire that from him.
Hey, Dennis, you just got a little bit ahead of me.
You beat me.
Hey, I didn't know what to share, but, you know, if Bill Gordon was here, Bill Gordon, who remember, well, just a very few of us remember Bill Gordon. He built a lot of oil field equipment, and sometimes Peter was always the one to build these rat hole diggers. What's a rat hole digger? But he knew what a rat hole digger was. It's some of the oil field thing when they drill like horizontal a little bit like that, and to store the puncher, the drill bit and all that. Or if they want to go way down, they could swivel it. And he made really good welds. And one day Bill Gordon thought he needed a little help there to build those rat hole diggers. You think that'd work? No. Two guys already know. No. He wanted to do. He's building them there. If somebody helps, he pinches fingers. Just the first time that they moved something around, his finger got in the way. No, he said he'd rather just work alone on those things. They weren't that big things. They were probably 16 inches in a pipe, and then they swiveled so that they could make the degree going down, something like that. But he did a good job on that. And things like that. I don't know. I know a lot of memories, but I don't know what I want to share. But that's part of it. He did really good working by himself. And I think one day he was cutting firewood and loading them up. He said, "Hey, I can do it faster by himself than having help." That's maybe just a little bit negative, but that's just that way he knew how to work it, you know, and how to stack it, so he could take off to town with it. And then he found out he could drive his trailer if that trailer was on the white line there, then it didn't jump like this, and he was going full speed. So let's keep that in mind. If our trailer goes on that 62, boom, 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 like that, just pull up to the white line, and he keeps going. He had tricks like that all the time. But anyway, one thing there was a couple of Indian boys working there. Okay, it was a couple of Indian boys that were supposed to help him there. The Coon, two Coon brothers, three brothers Their last name were Kuhn. And sometimes he ministered to them. My dad thought it was probably a little bit too much that he spends time with them, ministering to them. He's supposed to work. But, it didn't take long. 2 years after that, those doors were closed, Gordon Brothers. This one Kuhn, Tim Kuhn, he was always going Oklahoma City for the weekend. I'm not going to say where, but he did go places where he shouldn't be. He was doing something there, not Peter, but this Tim Kuhn. And all of a sudden, this one guy said, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong." And then Tim said, "What you're doing is wrong." And Tim Kuhn, he thought of that. He pushed everything aside and he went home to Welty, Oklahoma. Welty? IXL. And he knocked on his door. His wife opened the door. He said, who are you? "Well, I'm Tim. I'm coming home." "Oh, you never come home this early." She was afraid, probably going to get beat up or something. But he said, "No, I'm coming home and go to church with you tomorrow." And then as he went, he said, "But I'm not going to go out there praying. If the preacher wants me to come out there and pray he wants to pray over him, no." But he did. And he got saved. And Tim Kuhn, he is now the overseer of at least 7 or 8 churches Indian churches in the area. His name is Tim Kuhn. He always wanted to have what we had, what Peter had and what we had. So that's I was just going to say that. I like that. He was a good influence there and work and everything else. All right. Hey, thanks for coming here. Do what? I don't think he lived in Peyton. There may be Billy Kuhn or... Could be, not that I know of, but there's 3 brothers. And he made sure before he went and evangelized, he made sure that his mom and dad were saved and his neighbors, stuff like his surrounding area. And then he started going out preaching. And he's been even in our church testifying one time that he always wanted to have what you had. So it is important that we live right and that people are wanting to have what you have. Jim, whoever, Calvin. Okay, go ahead. I'm done.
Are we ready? Okay. So the little trick about the striker and the acetylene and oxygen, I think you have to put, it has to be the round striker, and you have to put a little oxygen and acetylene together in there, if I'm not mistaken. I never was able to do it just right, but I put together some thoughts here, and it turned into a poem. I don't get the credit for the poetry, but old Pete was a hard-working man with calloused hands and a careful plan. If not in fields with baler and hay, he'd fix what was broke or build all day. Trailers from steel or firewood stacked, there wasn't much Pete ever lacked. He'd mend and shape with steady pride, a life of labor, nothing to hide. On his Yamaha, slow and sure, he'd check his cattle on the moor. Then haul them off, dust in the air, in his 70 Ford with patient care. That old F-250, worn but true, was more than a truck. It carried him through miles of work and years gone by, a faithful partner beneath the sky. But Pete wasn't only grit and grind. He had a gentle, playful mind. With funny faces, sounds absurd, he'd light up hearts without a word. Foster kids first, then family grew. Grandkids laughing as the years all flew. Rides in the golf cart, slow and sweet, made simple moments feel complete. And when he'd stand to preach and teach, you knew the message he'd soon reach. A clearing throat, his quiet sign that truth and faith would soon align. Old Pete was steady, strong, and kind, the sort of man you don't often find. In work, in love, in all he gave, he built a life both proud and brave. So he will be missed. He was not twice my age, his brother-in-law not quite twice my age, but we'll miss him.
Yeah, I'm Pearl, Marlene's youngest sister. Yeah, in case nobody knows me. I have a few things that was mentioned that came to mind, a few stories. One was about him being forgiving. You know, you hear people tearing down the barn and whatnot. But one thing that I've remembered that he was forgiving in was he noticed some four-wheeler drivers tearing up part of his land towards the river. I don't know the situation, I don't know who it was, but he said, I already put an electric fence down and they're still doing it. And next time I talked to him, it was again, you know, they're still doing it. And finally he told me, well, there's just nothing I can do about it. I guess I'll just let them take the four-wheelers and, you know, tear up his land. So, and then there was the show-off thing, and I guess that's, I knew Titus growing up better than the other guys so much, but I think you like being picked on. But yeah, they still had something about showing off because when you were brought home, then they taped your ears back because they curled to the front a little bit. They were so nice and pliable. They had some Scotch tape and they taped it back to see if they would stay that way. So, you think they did? Yeah, I think too. They look pretty good now. Oh yeah, well, you know, we all have our birthmarks. And another thing was we had gone to Oklahoma City, and for some reason I had gone along, and it was strawberry season, and Marlene and Peter had bought a box or 2 or 3 or 5 of strawberries to bring home. We were going to visit a little boy in the hospital. I think somebody had a burn or something. Yeah, Dennis Peters. Anyway, we were going to visit him at the hospital, so I wanted to go along. I guess that's why I was along. Anyway, and you had started eating strawberries, and you got strawberries, I mean, all over your face. It wasn't as big as it's now, but it was, you know, massive. And Peter and Marlene, your mom and dad saw that you had that, and you, no way you're going into the hospital. You have to stay in the car if you're dirty like that. And oh, you just really got it bad, and I felt sorry for you. And you started licking your hands and then your cheeks, and you were rubbing and licking and rubbing and licking. And Mom, look, am I good now? Oh yeah, I think you're good. So you got to go into the hospital. So I was so relieved that you didn't need to stay in the car alone, you know, because I didn't want to stay with you. I wanted to, you know, we wanted to go in and see it. So there was still some pride after you were there. Okay, now I have some thoughts that came out like this. So it says, bring life back to Tucker Ranch. Let the hills remember laughter. Let the valleys cradle footsteps again. Fill them with children running barefoot through dust and dusk. With young parents calling from porches, with newlyweds planting dreams in soft earth. Bring back the wonder of slow talking walks at sunset, of three-wheelers humming down dirt roads, Honda and Yamaha singing their restless songs. Families once sang here, their voices rolled like wind through the valley, caught in the rafters of every home, where clothes flapped freely in the breeze like flags of ordinary, sacred life. Fields stretched wide, corn, peanuts, wheat, hands in soil, faith in rain, hope rising with every green shoot. Sweethearts waved through open windows, small gestures, but enough to hold the world together. And walking to school was nothing, just a jog, a laugh, a shortcut through belonging. Everyone knew when company came, a car, a cloud of dust, a reason to gather. A close community stitched tight by names, stories, and shared bread. Communities breathe like that, shared, aware, alive. The pioneers of Boli, 1977, they carved this life from nothing, a way of being, laid down roots deep enough for all of us to stand taller now. And now we look back. We long forward. The new gym stands waiting, echoing with what could be again. Sneakers squeaking, voices rising, a place to meet, to mend, to belong. So many have gone on to glory. Their houses whisper. Their echoes wait in empty rooms, in quiet porches, in fields that still remember their names. Their doors still remember their hands. So, fill the houses, every one that stands too still, and build new ones where laughter can take root. Let children spill into the streets. Let fences become places of leaning and talking. Let whistles carry farther than worry, and waves mean you belong here. Waves that say, I see you. Daddies go to work at dawn, and prayers follow them like shadows, soft, steady, unseen but never absent. We will plant trees again, mend the broken roads, and walk them together. Can you see it? The beauty of community, not lost, just waiting. Tucker Ranch is waiting, not to be what it was, but to become what it has always promised to be. The farmers in their fields again, corn stretching tall, peanuts tucked beneath the soil, wheat swaying like a quiet prayer, and neighbors crossing rows, not as strangers, but as hands ready to help. To shell peas together in the shade, to laugh, to sing, then wander on to the next porch where another pile waits and another story begins. Let kindness be quick, a hurt, a cry, a need, and maids, mothers, neighbors rushing over before the worry can settle. Peek out a window, and there they are, your people, your comfort, your proof that you are never alone. Build a home of loving care so those in the golden years may still rest on the soil that raised them until heaven calls them gently onward. It's all right to wipe a tear. It waters the roots of what we long for. We remember, we ache, we hope. Bring back the children's laughter in the streets, the simple beauty of knowing every name, the quiet richness of enough. Bring life back to Tucker Ranch, not just in houses rebuilt, but in hearts returned. Let every window be bright again. Fill the porches, paint the walls, a valley not forgotten, but waking. Tucker Ranch is waking. There is a memory and a heart still beating beneath the quiet. All it needs is you. So.
So the first memory I have of Peter is when he came to Mexico to see Marlene, and he boarded at my mom and dad's place. And if I've got my memory correct, he was a wise man of 35, I guess. And so he saw these young parents trying to raise these young boys, and he had some advice for my mom and dad of how to train these boys. So I think, if I remember right, one of the things he said that children should learn to eat everything that was on the table. I don't know if that carried through to his boys as well. It probably did. And later, so of course I have a lot of memories when he worked for us at Freezing Trailers for I don't know how many years. One of the things that I noticed, I would guess, and I don't know if that's a fact, but I would guess he probably, school was probably tough for him when he was growing up, and I don't think he read a lot of storybooks, but one time he had read a storybook, and I think it was probably one of the, I think he said at that point, probably the first storybook that he read front to back. And it was a very interesting story, and he could tell and tell that story. It was almost like he read it once and he memorized it. And that's something, I've read thousands of books, and I couldn't tell you many of them, you know, a lot of the details there. But he could, because somehow that one book he read, it sunk into him really deep. And a little later, probably in the last 8 or 10 years, about every time I would meet him and we'd talk, he would say, yeah, it's kind of funny, you know, we became grandpas almost the same time, because our oldest granddaughter and their oldest granddaughter are within a couple of days of the same age. And so that was something that he mentioned about every time we met, and that is, yeah.
All right, so again, there's no rush to end this. Also, no obligation to stay for those of you who have other things you need to go do. So far, I've been kind of handing the mic to people that I know have something to say. Is there anybody that wants the mic? Susie? Anybody else right now? All right, here you go, Susie.
Well, as we've heard, church was very important to Peter. And I should maybe let Marlene tell this, but she told us that last Sunday morning he got up real early at 6 o'clock, and he wanted to be ready to listen to the church service. And I think he got a shirt out of the closet and was dressing himself, and he asked her, are my pants good enough to listen to the church service? And I'm just blessed by that testimony. And also a couple of memories. Marlene's mom used to always like to call him Old Pete. She'd refer to Peter as Old Pete. I just thought that was funny. And something else. That slipped my memory. Oh yeah, and after Peter was retired, you know, of course he didn't need to get up so early in the morning to go to work. And so one morning, I don't know if he was still sleeping, I think so. But anyway, Marlene's mom called to their house 8 o'clock in the morning, and later he says, I don't know why people have to call here middle of the night.
Yeah, so the story about him trying to get dressed so he can listen to the church service, that was Sunday morning, I was there. And I made breakfast for them. This was this last Sunday. And we're sitting down to eat breakfast, and about every 10 minutes or so, he was wanting to just get an update on the time, make sure he wasn't going to miss out on the church service.
A little while ago, I went to visit Peter and Marlene with our 4 little ones. And I didn't feel as if I really knew them very well, but it was a good time. First, I had a chance to get their love story. I was digging it out of the lady. Thanks for that. I was threatening to write it down. It's a good story. So if you run out of topics, if you ever go to visit Tonta Marlene, you can ask her for their love story. It's a beautiful story. Anyway, after a while, I asked her if Uncle Peter would like to have a few songs. My children love to sing, so I was figuring we could maybe sing them a song or two. You know, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, whatever, songs that children like to sing. So he came out, and I didn't know at what point or how well his health would be at that time, so I was kind of surprised to see him walking by himself, but he came out and he sat down, and I told the children, run and say hi, and they did, and I didn't figure it was a big deal, but later he had told my sister that they came as if it mustn't but bad hang, because of there 4 of them, and he was kind of gave that delighted little chuckle that you know how it sounds coming out of his throat. Anyway, yeah, we sang for him a couple songs, and then I was telling him, you know, his wife had told me all the different places he had already lived in his life, born in Canada and all that Belize and Mexico and state stuff. And I told him, or I asked him, where do you want to move next? He looked at me and his face just changed totally, and he said, oh no, I found the oblast no high. And he was glowing, and I just loved to see that in his face. And I don't know if there's a proper time or place to say it, or if I'm the person that should say it, but if you're 70 or 80 and the thought of going home to heaven does not spark joy in your heart, please get busy. You got a Heavenly Father that cares about you.
That's very good. I had a short, similar conversation with him last week, and he had absolutely no anxiety of death. Like he was relaxed. He wasn't excited about dying, but he wasn't excited about staying here. He said, "I'm ready, and there's no reason to stay." And to be honest with you, when I left there, I thought to myself, if you can be that relaxed about it, it's not that I'm not ready to die, it's just I'd rather not do it tomorrow. I'd like to wait a couple more decades. And here I'm talking to a guy who's perfectly okay with if it happens tomorrow or today or the day after. It's no big deal. And I couldn't, it was peaceful. It was very calming seeing that on his face. And that's why when I left on Sunday morning, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen pretty soon. And if it does, it will be perfect because he is ready. If anybody else wants the mic, raise your hand. Meanwhile, I'm going to quickly tell one more fun story, if you don't mind. So when I was probably about 16 years old, I got my first vehicle, and I got to pick it out. It was a red GMC Jimmy. It was not the passed-down farm truck. It was a useless vehicle as far as my dad's concerned because you can't haul anything with it. But that's what I wanted. Actually, to be honest with you, I picked that vehicle because I didn't want another pickup truck on the farm because my dad would borrow it all the time, and my dad was not that good at keeping things dent-free. And if you blew a tire or blew a rim or whatever, you just put on whatever fits and you keep trucking. And I wanted something that I could take care of myself. So I wanted something that was not going to be useful for my dad to the farm. Anyway, so I've got this 94 GMC Jimmy. And again, here's a story just to show you he was fun. While you might have known him as a preacher or a pastor or a deacon and somebody you go to for life advice and such things, you might have thought that he would be a little more strict about some things with his teenage son. But one Saturday night, myself and a friend, we made a very hasty trip all the way from Oklahoma City all the way back to Boley. We might have done the entire trip with our headlights off at 10:30 at night at 96 to 105 miles an hour, passing lots of cops and lots of small towns. We did things we definitely would not recommend to anybody. But I say that to say this: I did in fact run from the Boley police, and he did not catch us because the gravel road was too dusty. And when I slid my GMC Jimmy behind the house, I went to bed very quickly, hoping the cops would not show up on the yard, and they didn't. On Sunday morning, my dad comes to my door and wakes me up, says, "Hey, it's about time to get up. Mom's making coffee, making breakfast." All right, I'm gonna get up. He walks away, comes back, opens my door again, just about 6 inches, looks in there, looks at me and says, "Has police trouble?" Well, I'm like, "No, why? What you got in mind?" He says, "Nou, we don't gewoonlijk niet onze voeten hang am huis parken." And that's literally all I ever heard about it. He never asked, he never told Mom, he never created any issues whatsoever, and he never dug into what we may have done the night before, and that was my dad. He knew that whatever lessons were learned the night before was probably enough, and we never discussed it.
Well, I was privileged to be one of Peter and Marlene's foster children for about 4.5 years. Is that right, Marlene? More or less, she says. But I would never have ever seen Peter mad, even though I did naughty things, because, I mean, who wouldn't as a little child? But he always had patience. And I know the second time I was placed into their foster home, I came back scrawny and not in a good shape. But he would sit me down, and Marlene always made the best chocolate cake. But icing not bites and with sprinkles, none of the milk ever share. Don hold with China dessert, and he would feed a big old giant piece to this little 3-year-old, and it was good. And within a few weeks, he had fattened me up, and it was not a big deal about eating anymore. But yeah, he taught me how to ride a bike, and we went on four-wheeler rides, and we had a good time. But Peter also taught me that we don't horje and we don't nicht lie. But he was very kind through it all. I was always afraid of being abused, but at Peter Marlene, there was just love, and that's where I bloomed.
I was also blessed to be one of their foster children. One part about him showing off, even at my age, when I got to know him, he did still show off a whole bunch. With his hoof folder, they went to check the cattle. If me or any of my cousins were here on the road, and he was on the folder, he'd make sure that thing would go full speed and see how many times he could drift from side to side on the road. I'm thankful for the opportunity I've had to grow up in that home and just to feel the strength and security of a Christian home, a new lifestyle I may not have had otherwise. So grateful and thankful that opportunity like that came up for me.
8 years ago, we were visiting Uncle Peter and Donna Marling, and so Uncle Peter took my husband with our 4 children for a ride in the pickup, and they went down to the river. There was lots of mud. My husband was thinking, this man is gonna get us stuck here in the mud, but no. My husband found out that this man had a lot of experience with getting out of the mud, and he made it out. The children in the back got pretty muddy, but they got out of the riverbed there. And later, driving through the woods, I think they kind of drove through a back road somewhere. There was a tree, and then my husband thought too that, oh, for sure, this is how far we came. But no, that pickup he just rammed right into that tree and and brought the tree down with the pickup. So like Titus said, at that place they're not then free necessarily. And I'm just happy to say I'm happy that that my children, even my children, will remember something from Uncle Peter.
Thanks, Dorcas.
Coffee Mill Lake and the little Volkswagen. You remember that? Yep. After work, then he took Titus and Arlie and me swimming in Coffee Mill Lake, and that's something I very fondly remember from him. And sometimes ask myself, would I take time to do that? and I'm afraid I would have to say no. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about that. You're right. After school, I had to come home, put axles on the trailer, and shortly after that, it was time to go to Lake Coffee Mill Lake, or Lake Crockett, right? Either one of them. Yeah, Schwammerfeuer, a couple times a week. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Another very short story. Shortly after I got my driver license, but before I had my own truck, my own vehicle, I would always be the one driving. I wouldn't let mom or dad drive if we were going anywhere because I got a brand new driver license in my pocket. And so I was too fast, and I was roasting the tires on that minivan, because after all, that's what dad taught me. And mom was telling dad, "Hier, check mal, wat du den hast geleerd. Waarom hast du den so geleerd?" Dat var nu fått jag kommer så bozig, maar I'm all the way I'm spinning. And we're cruising, and my mom's looking up. She's sitting in the back seat, and she can see we're driving quite a bit over speed limit. My dad's sitting in the front seat, and mom says, "Hier, waarom vat je zo bozig? Wat police op je houden? Wat ticket krijg je?" And my dad literally just looks over and says, "Wanneer hij een ticket krijgt, dan wordt hij voor den betolen." All right. Any other takers at this moment? If not, we're probably about to shut it down. Anybody else that has anything to say right now? All right. I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Well, we thank you for showing up and listening to us and sharing stuff with us as a family. We appreciate it, especially for me. I appreciate the stories from before I came into their family, and it's definitely a good family to be a part of. There's adventure in that one. You might have not seen it from a distance, but when you get there, you get to know them in a different way. Yes, thank you for showing up, for showing your love on us, for caring. It's a special thing, and we're grateful to you all. And we ask that God bless you all, and that God would show his love on you for showing love to the family here. Thank you.